Hey, welcome back to Rust Order Garage and the 1971 Nova project. LS swap, T56 swap, all that good stuff. So, now that all the mock-up stuff is done on the engine side, we figured out what engine mounts I'm going to use, what set of headers I'm going to use. I'll still decide last minute, but I know it'll be long tubes. And we know what oil pan I'm going to use. Probably use the 302.2, just because I don't plan on putting a turbo on this engine, and I already have the oil pan, so might as well roll it, right? That is the engine that's going to go in. That is the 2002 LQ9 from the Escalade donor that you saw in previous videos, or you didn't if you didn't see that, but regardless, it's an 02 Escalade 6.0 LQ9, which is a bit of an oddball. So besides throwing a cam in it, which we are going to put the Elgin 1840, the well-known as the sloppy stage 2 cam, I have one here, a real one I purchased from Speedway years ago. So we're going to put that in there. But because this is a 2002 Escalade engine, it's a bit of an oddball. It's a 1-year only drive-by-wire system. And I didn't get crazy into the harness, but it looked like, unlike the 03 up, where you just have a jumper harness from the tack module down to the pedal and it all can be removed very easily. It looked like the drive-by-wire setup on this Escalade was wired into the main harness, meaning that I'm not going to mess with it, pinning out wires and going crazy with all that stuff. Plus, I don't know if the wiring setup is the same as 03 up. So basically, I'm just going to scrap that drive-by-wire system. So then that adds some extra things to do to the engine. So that means I could convert the engine to either drive-by cable or 03 up drive-by-wire would be just as easy to do. But because I'm putting a 6-speed behind it, and I want to do a segment swap, meaning I want to combine a couple different operating system, well, single operating system, but a couple different programs to build a tune for this, because I want to keep the 6-liter engine side of things and then add, say, LS1 Camaro T56 side of things for the transmission and put them all together. And I'm pretty sure, I checked before, and as long as my memory's still good, that the engine is an operating system 156, I believe this number, which is a very common operating system. There's XDF files out there for it from Tuner Pro and such, so very easy to work with. And the Z28 Camaro is also a 156, so that makes it possible to do a segment swap and build a tune. The thing I have to do before all of that is I need to double check the service number in that PCM and make sure it has the IAC driver chips in it, because you cannot always just use the same PCM on a drive-by-wire setup and convert it to drive-by cable. If it doesn't have the driver chips in there for the idle air control, you can't do it, and you need a PCM that'll do it. So I'm going to have to check the service number on that against the known numbers that have the chips. I don't have them memorized, but I will double check that. Before I even get to that, though, as you can see, it's all still complete right out of the Escalade. I need to get a wiring harness off. I'm going to take the front accessories off because I don't know if I'm going to use the truck water pump. Again, I have not done an LS swap in a Nova yet, so I don't know how this is all going to play out. I'm pretty sure the alternator side of things will fit, but I don't know if I need or should run the LS3 type Camaro water pump or a different water pump or whatever. I have to double check, but I don't know what I'm going to use, basically. So I'm going to strip the front of the engine off. Like I said, wiring harness, PCM's all coming off, engine mounts are coming off. Going to get it pretty cleaned up and down to the basics. So because of this wacky setup with the PCM, I'm going to be doing a lot of, say, starting the engine before we even put it in the car. If you haven't figured out by now, I like to test things. I like things to be ready to go, and then there's no surprises later. So because I'm doing so much here, first, I don't know anything about this intake manifold. I don't know if I can just bolt on a regular drive-by cable throttle body on it, or do I have to switch the intake? The other thing is I'm also going to use different injectors and different rails. I have from the Mule engine that we used for mock-up, that was actually a flex fuel engine, so it's got larger injectors. I think they're 36 or 38 pounders, depending on your fuel pressure you run. So that works good with the cam. They'll be good for well over 400 horsepower, no problem. So I'm going to run those larger injectors on there. So that's another thing I have to change in the tune. I got to grab the injector data from the flex fuel tune and put it into this engine tune, and then do the segment swap for the transmission and all that stuff. But so each step of the way, I'm just going to make sure that the engine will still run without me screwing things up. So I'm going to put the engine on this engine stand and get it stripped down, and then we'll start messing with changing the throttle body and messing with the tune. And then as far as wiring harnesses go, that's another thing. So if you saw in one of my earlier videos, and again, if you follow me and keep track of these, there's all different stuff going on, so you know what I'm talking about. But I bought a whole bunch of unknown wiring harnesses from an eBay seller, at least, and they claimed to not know what they were for or anything about them. You know, it takes away all liability. So one of the harnesses that I bought was a drive-by cable, so 99 to 02, and for manual transmission. So I just went through that harness the other day and checked it out. And of course, as expected, at like every other 99 to 02, it's pinned and designed for the LS1. So that was expected. Other than that, there were no defects in that harness. I did add the extra wire for the alternator because an LS1 alternator, as you've seen, if you've bought any of those harnesses, they only have one wire on the alternator connector. And unless something's wrong with the Buick up there, that was a test on the 55 Turbo Buick, I did not add the second wire to the alternator connector. Without the PCM knowing that voltage through that second wire, it doesn't charge more than a little over 13 volts, which is not good, especially since I'm running 2 fuel pumps and such. It's never had a problem starting or anything, but I don't like it. So after that, I always add that second wire, and now I get, 14.5 volts like I should for charging, including on the 56 Chevy truck. So this harness, I found no problems with it whatsoever, other than, like I said, I added that second wire for the field pin, F pin, on the alternator. So the truck alternator wants that second wire, so that way I should get full charging. So, boy, was that a runoff sentence there. That's the harness I'm going to use for this. So while we have the engine on the stand, I'm going to run it with a remote fuel system, put that harness on, and make sure it runs. In fact, we're going to do it as is before I even mess with the engine. We're going to fire it off right on the stand, make sure everything's good, and then we'll get into making changes. And the only other modification I have to make on that harness that I didn't do already is, obviously it was LS1 based harness, so it had a 3-pin math and a 2-pin IAT connector. I'm going to cut those off and wire in a GM 5-pin math connector so I can use the truck mass airflow with the built-in intake air temperature sensor, and that will take care of that issue. I just don't know how long to make the wires, so I'll probably make them long like I did on the truck, and then wherever it is I have enough length. But we'll do that when the time comes. But first, I guess it's time. Let's get this engine on the stand and start taking it apart. All right, let's fly this engine. Already has a seat belt on it from when I took it out of the Escalade. Let's see if we can get it in there without breaking everything or dumping it or all the usual pitfalls. These things are horribly unbalanced with this truck oil pan, I'll say that. And this truck, since it was no 6-liter, it's got EGR on it, so those manifolds will get thrown away. Not that I use them anymore anyway. It looks like after messing around with these eBay headers, I don't think I would use manifolds ever again unless I was cutting them and flipping them for maybe a turbo install or something. Because the eBay headers are just a good deal. They just work. All right, we're a little bit tilted here, but we'll see if we can get this to work now. All right, engine is on the stand. This stand looks a lot beefier than the last one I was using, which is cool. But as usual, they always seem to drip out of the water neck. Can never get all the coolant out of the damn thing. So I'm going to let that drip down a little bit. And in the meantime, I'm going to look up this. That's a 411. Okay. Didn't expect to see that. It's a service number 411, so that'll have the driver chips. No problem. So all I should have to do is turn off drive-by-wire in the base tune. And as long as this is a regular 3-bolt flange, which it looks like it is, I should be able to just put a drive-by cable throttle body on this intake, put the eBay wiring harness on it, a fuel system, and it should start and run right on the stand. So that will be the next plan. So let me get the wiring harness stripped off of here and the front end accessories and such, and then we'll come back and continue. All right, we are ready to start cleaning this thing up. I already built a tune. It took a minute because I like doing that stuff. And I took the original 6.0 tune, which was a 156 operating system, like I thought it was. I was hoping it would be. And I used LS Droid to do a segment swap. LS Droid is a fantastic free program that works great. Teach yourself how to use that stuff, and you can save a ton of money. And then that was used, I used that to create the 6.0 T56 file. Then went in with Tuner Pro, another free program, I should say, and edited the file, turned off VATs, turned off the security, turned off a bunch of, I want to say, normal things that are not going to be needed anymore because we're going standalone. There were a lot more things to turn off on this tune than normal because of the drive-by wire. So I turned off all the trouble codes for drive-by wire. If you go into the system file on the tune, you can turn off drive-by wire because these PCMs I looked up. This is the 411, obviously, and there are other operating systems as well, and I just happen to have another PCM around with a different service number, and they all work for both drive-by wire, drive-by cable. The PCM that I used is in service number ends with 4896. I bought that at a swap meet. I don't know, a couple weeks ago for like 10 bucks or something. And I'm using that as my mule PCM. My original Escalade PCM, I just left it stock as is for now. So once we get all this torn down, I'm going to go ahead and see what the deal is with the throttle body. I may just change whole intake. We'll decide at that point, but you get this wiring harness off, start cleaning this thing up a little bit. Wiring harness removed. It always looks so much better once the wiring's off. Start to look more like an engine. But, as usual, plenty of leaves and junk and everything else in the intake area. So, vacuum that up. And then I think next we'll get at least get the fan off. We'll see if we get lucky and if it comes off easy or not. All right, block is vacuumed up. Wasn't that bad. Just some usual leaves and some mice remnants. Now, if this water pump's been replaced before, might get lucky and this fan will come off without getting the air hammer out. Yes! All right, just about done here. I just went around and loosened up all the 15mm bolts I could find. Get the engine mounts off. I think I may just change the whole intake manifold on this thing. Because this has EGR that I don't want. Wrong injectors. Wrong rails. Wrong throttle body. Pretty much. Everything's wrong on it. So, I think it might make more sense just to swap the whole intake. Right. EC belt off of here. That's junk. Get the compressor off of here. Not going to use that AC compressor. Might use that style, but not mounted down here. I don't think that's going to work. So we'll get a bracket to put the air compressor, AC compressor up top. Caught it. Let's see if we can get a grip on it. All right, I just realized, well, we're going to be doing a cam, so you might as well take the water pump off too. She's stuck on there. All right, we are almost there. I think I'm just going to pull the intake now. What's the difference, right? Put on the other intake manifold with the other injectors and just see how it runs. All I want to do is make sure that it does start and run like this, because we're going to have to tune it anyway after the cam swap. So what does it matter? I just want to make sure the tune works. Because if it doesn't run, I got other problems. Is that all? Look at that, just fall right off. Very nice. All right, I got more vacuuming to do. Intake ports are full of oil as usual from the PCV system. What a horrible design that is. I'll clean this up best I can. And then I think we'll be ready to get started on all the changes for the engine. So we're going to do cam swap, valve spring upgrade. Going to replace all the seals on the timing cover. While that gets done, we're going to replace the front galley cover. Get that done. And what else? We're going to change oil pan to our 3022. And I think that is about it. But before I do any of that, we are going to start and run the engine right here on the stand like it is. I'll just bolt on the other intake, make sure it fires, and then we'll start ripping it apart and making the upgrades. All right, well, unfortunately, I got to work for a living, so I got to go back to work. So I am done for a little bit, but I'll try to get this cleaned up after work one night and have it ready to go for the next steps. And it won't be long till we'll be dropping it in the Nova, which is just sitting back there waiting. And then now that we know what mounts and oil pan and headers and all the stuff we're going to use is going to fall right in. And the only fabrication work left will be when we put the 6-speed up there, transmission cross member. But Marketplace may have saved me. You'll see that on the next one. So, or at least when we get that installed. So thanks for watching. Thanks for following along. Sorry if that wasn't too interesting, but sometimes they're not. It is what it is. All this work has to be done in order to get to the good stuff. See you in the next one. Later.